right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to D-Pod. It has been a long time. And today with me, I have Toph, Genji, and Hyuna. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Yo.
Hello. All right. So, man, it's been a while. Today's episode, we're calling it Project Loop because... Why are we calling it Project Loop, Toph?
Because we're going to be talking about our downtown service.
Woohoo!
You.
Wait, I think I have a thing here. Oh, wait. Oh, the music's still playing. Oh, I'm totally messing things up right now. Okay, anyways.
Too rusty. Oh my god.
Yeah, that's what I meant to do.
Wow.
Sorry, that took me too long to find that. Okay, it's been a while. I'm sorry. It's been a while since we've recorded and kind of rusty at using this machine now. All right, but okay. So we just had our first downtown service for Voyage Chicago. It was really exciting.
Yeah.
And today we want to talk about that. We want to talk about kind of this shift towards downtown, what's behind that. Yeah, I'm going to just have Toph be our host today. So let's take it away.
Yeah, for sure. Let's just dive in. Yeah, so DP mentioned we had the downtown service today. We've been talking about this for a few months now, making this push towards reaching more college students in the Chicagoland area.
I guess the staff have been talking about it for a few months.
Yeah.
Maybe the students first found out about it at the discipleship retreat at the beginning of this month. So, yeah.
But yeah, like DP said, the staff have been talking about it for a while. There have been a lot of conversations behind it, but I thought we could start with how today went. Like, what was you guys' experience of today's downtown service?
It was nice because we got to get out of Hyde Park. I think that was like a really big benefit. It felt like all the students were really happy. The weather was really nice. And just to be able to get out of Hyde Park and do something totally new in a new venue and do service there, it was pretty cool.
We were at Congress Hotel, Congress Plaza Hotel, which is this historic hotel. It was made in 1893 for the World's Fair. And many presidents have stayed there, including both Roosevelt's and a bunch of other presidents that I can't remember the name of, like Coolidge and other people like that.
And Al Capone.
Al Capone.
He wasn't president, but
Not president.
he wasn't president, but he stayed there too.
He's a bad man, but but apparently there's a tunnel that leads out of the hotel that Al Capone would use. At least that's what the hotel person told me, but I don't know if that's true. It's also in many of the listings for most haunted buildings in Chicago.
What?
So
Spooky.
yeah, but it's okay. Jesus is with us. So but it was nice. We've been doing some outreach, just getting to know the downtown area and UIC better. It's been kind of fun to kind of see downtown in a new way, like see it as a college campus instead of just a big city. And if you look, wow, there's a lot of students there. And through various outreach, like I think we had 3 brand new people who joined us today. So that was kind of cool. We didn't know what to expect, actually. Like, I would have been surprised if no one came, and I would have been surprised if a lot of people came. And so we had 3 people. So that was kind of cool. And then, yeah, like Genji said, it was, it's kind of nice just being out of Hyde Park and breaking out of that Hyde Park bubble.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the students said that it was nice being outside of Hyde Park because she has strong associations with her classes when we meet on campus.
I guess we'd have Sunday service in like the rooms that sometimes they have finals in. So I guess that's not super ideal.
Yeah, too soon, too close to home. Yeah, for sure. It's cool to hear about how the service today went. I was thinking a little bit about it too, and the timing kind of seems interesting. Like, we're trying this out in April, like a few weeks from when the semester schools end for the year. So I think some people are probably curious about like why we're choosing to do this now as opposed to like when there's more time to, I guess, ramp up for like a regular semester school schedule. Do you guys have any like thoughts you want to share on how we decided to do this at this stage?
Yeah, so I actually got this question from somebody recently during an office hours, and it was kind of like it was a little like this person was being very realistic. They're like, okay, well, right now we get a certain number of students at Sunday service because we're like one of the most convenient services to attend, right? For a college student at the University of Chicago campus. But then if we move to downtown, we're going to lose some people, right? And that's the case. That even happened today, right? So like, in terms of like our regular numbers, like it might have seemed lower today. So why choose to do this now? Well, I think that has to do with us looking forward. So for me, I think after having wrestled with this issue of what is the future of Voyage Chicago, I feel fairly certain that God wants us to expand our reach to beyond Hyde Park and to expand into the downtown area, into UIC, And I think that's definitely a move that we're going to make in August. Now, here's the thing. Like Chicago is a quarter system, right? And so like a lot of our busy ministry activity starts mid-September, right? But then these campuses, they all start in August, mid-August, right? And so then we'd be in a situation where like as we're trying to start up in August, we're not going to have any students. Like, it's going to feel like a brand new church plant at that point, right? And so then like we wanted to actually get some reps in now in April while those schools are still in session, right? We want to actually be on the campus, trying to meet some students, try to get a feel for that campus so we can get some data, so that in August we can make some better decisions. And so from a strategic, like kind of longer term planning perspective, that's the reason why we chose to do this, even though it feels a little bit like a sacrifice to our Chicago ministry. But I think an added benefit to it that I see is that like I see our students kind of, because we pitched this at the discipleship retreat, and I see our students trying to kind of understanding what this new vision is and how they play into it, and seeing them also rise up to the occasion has been really exciting. But yeah, I think that's why I would say we're doing it now. Like, it actually felt really urgent to me that we do it right now in April, because this is the last month before all those students go off for summer break. And then the next time we'll see them is August.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, if we're going to try to make this push in August, it's nice to be able to have some data we can use to make a more informed decision when that rolls around, as opposed to going in blind in August and trying to figure it out for the first time. Yeah, that's true. And it's pretty encouraging that we were able to actually, put the service on today. I think there were about 3 or so new people that came, which is pretty awesome. Awesome to see. And I think I was kind of reminded of all the work that kind of went into that too. Like, the staff have been busy, and also involving the students too in some of the outreach we've been doing in downtown, as well as UIC, which is one of the larger South Chicago campus. And so we've all been doing different types of work to get our name out there, branding ourselves as Voyage Chicago. Some of you have probably already heard about our new poster approach, not your grandmother's church, or we know my mom's been asking, and trying to figure out ways to engage new people like that and online. But it was pretty cool to see all the staff trying to make an effort to be out there, as well as the students also coming alongside us to get the word out about this too. And we tried a bunch of different things the past few weeks to do that. And you guys are also involved in some of that too. So again, if I threw it to you, maybe you can share a little bit about what the staff have been trying over the past few weeks.
Yeah, one specific thing we tried was we put some of our friends inside a giant inflatable shark costume, and we put them in downtown Chicago. That was really fun. I think Matthew was in there, Neil was in there. Yeah, we've basically we've kind of had a two-pronged approach. We've been going to the Loop, downtown, and then we've been going to UIC, kind of alternating back and forth. And then we have sort of a team dedicated for each campus. And then in the Loop, we've been just trying to see where's a good place to meet college students, because just in downtown Chicago, those campuses don't really have a formal campus, right? It's just the city streets. So we're just setting up shop in different places, flyering, postering, tabling, and trying to see what works and what doesn't. And then I think in USC, we've just been doing our usual tabling and flyering as well. Yeah, kind
of figuring it out as we go. Yeah. And I've seen even this past Friday, we were trying a different spot for tabling. I think initially we tried to set up shop at this spot in downtown called the University Center, where a lot of students in the Loop stay. Then we moved up a little bit this time to where SCIC is, which is the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and just trying different ways to try to meet new people. And yeah, like you said, we're not really sure what we're doing exactly, but we're trying to figure it out as we go along, and that's been neat. Yeah, I personally got a chance to join the outreach for Friday. So we were tabling outside of SCIC and trying to get the word out about our service. It was interesting. Some people stopped by our table. Then it was also pouring crazy, in the rain. Yeah, almost as soon as I got there. So but that was kind of fun. People were good sports about it. I was out there with Agape, Bia, and Jason, and yeah, it was a cool time. And we got to see some new people through that too. So hopefully some of the people we met can come out to our future downtown service as well. Yeah. Were any of you guys at the UIC tabling that we did over the past couple of weeks?
I was there.
Okay, cool. How was that?
It was all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I thought at UIC we would meet only UIC students, but actually we met like students from Columbia there, and
Yeah.
I think Generations College there too, and just like so it seems like maybe people at these smaller schools that don't have a campus, maybe they come to the nearest big campus, which is UIC. Because UIC has a fairly big campus, actually, if you've never been.
Yeah.
So, but it's largely UIC students. There's a lot of students there. So if you're there during the daytime, it's like there's a lot of people passing by. So it's definitely in terms of foot traffic, you're just going to meet the most number of people there.
Yeah.
But also the thing is that it's a pretty diverse campus. There's people who are kind of they're working, they're paying for their own college, they're from the lower income backgrounds. There's people from Chicago, but there's also people from like out of state and things like that. And so it's just, you meet all sorts of people, and generally there's a wide range. There's people who are like stressed, but there's also there was this one guy who was like skateboarding, and he was like hanging out with us for like 4 or 5 hours because he was just near us, and he like also started flying for us. He took some of our flyers on his skateboard, and he would like skate up to people and like stop, like skid to a stop, and then hand them a flyer.
That's awesome.
He was like, I'm not doing anything. Like, I'll help you guys. Yeah. So it's funny. Yeah. It's just, I'm just reminded everywhere we go that college students are college students. It doesn't matter if you go to UIC or U Chicago or you go to like this like very non-standard college like in downtown where like everything happens in one giant building. You don't have a campus besides that one building, or so it's sort of, anytime I talk to them and get to know them, I'm like, oh, people are all just trying to figure out their way in life and their purpose and meet friends and meet a loved one, and it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of reminds me also that people are people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because it's kind of, even though we're involved in college ministry and we're college mentors, like I find that it's really easy to like lose sight of that sometimes. Like either you just kind of get into the rhythm of life or ministry at the campus you're at. So in our case, like U Chicago and IIT. But then once you step out with the purpose of, hey, I want to try to meet more people or expand our reach or expand our scope, your scope of concern grows, and you see like, oh wow, these people are, even though it's on a campus I'm not that familiar with, as you connect with them and get to hear about their experiences, it's like, oh hey, like they're just like I was when I was in college, or they're just like the U Chicago IIT students are at their core too. So it's kind of nice to be able to get that fresh perspective from going out to do this too. I think it'd be cool as well to hear a little bit about some of the learnings we've had as we've gone ahead to try to do this. And like we said, it's very new for us to be trying to reach students in in the city on like a campus that's very atypical from what we're used to in the campuses that we're from. So maybe even some learnings about what that experience has been like would be cool to share and talk about.
Yeah, I think one learning that that I had is just that, I mean, it's hard. Like it's hard to start anything new, right? Like we've been at U Chicago for like 5 years, I think, and like we're I don't know what it was like at the very beginning, but coming in like 2 years ago. Yeah, we were a pretty fairly established group. We had a pretty well-known Sunday service, and students would come and they would bring their friends and things like that. And now we're in downtown, and we don't really have any sort of that presence, and we don't have like an established sort of name and group out there. And I think I was just reminded that just to start anything new, it's just hard. Like it just takes a good amount of legwork just to get something off the ground. And I'm sure that was the case for the 2015 Bros when they first moved to Chicago like 5 years ago. And now we're just we're experiencing some of that that difficulty now. But it's worth it. Like it's worth doing that work in order to do that.
Yeah. A podcast I used to listen to a lot, like, is called How I Built This, and it's a podcast about like startup founders, people who like built movements and big companies and things like that. And while I might not agree with the worldview of a lot of these people, one piece of wisdom that I've picked up from listening to so many of those stories is, like anyone who created anything meaningful, like, it was hard. Like none of those stories are like, oh yeah, like it just happened. Like no, like like it was like a lot of effort and a lot of like thinking and a lot of just moving your body and trying different things and failing and trying again. Right. And obviously when we do ministry, it's that plus it's the Holy Spirit's work, right? We're partnering with what God's doing. But but there's no way of getting around hard work, right? In terms of getting anything started, even in a ministry. And I think we're reading a little bit of that in our Exodus DTs, right? As we think about, okay, like God's going to rescue the Israelites. Well, why can't he just rescue the Israelites? Well, no, Moses is going to have to go through like all of these steps, and it's going to be a really painful journey, right? And like God trained him for 40 years by having him live in Pharaoh's palace, and then he trained him for 40 additional years by having him be a shepherd in Midian, right? So like it took 80 years of training before God was like, okay, you're ready, Moses, right? And so I think about that and sort of, man, like just putting in the work. And Genji mentioned U Chicago ministry, like just to appreciate kind of what we have had to do here, like just the timing of things for us, right? Like, and I know 2017 church plants also had to do this, but like we started. So they barely got things off the ground in the first year, and then a bunch of new staff came, and so the leadership structure completely changed, and so that was like a brand new start, and so that almost felt like we had to restart there. And then the middle of that year, COVID hit, so then everything like got kind of thrown out, and then in 2021, it felt like we started to rebuild again.
Yeah,
which is why if you look at our ministry now, we have very few seniors. It's because we've basically been rebuilding for the past 3 years, right? So this ministry had like we restarted like 3 times, but now for the past 3 years we've built some momentum, and I think now that's why we feel like, okay, we've built enough momentum where we can turn our attention as a staff group to what's the next thing to like that God wants us to do. And this is not us being ambitious, this is not us being like, oh, we just need more numbers. Like, no, it's like the Great Commission is very big, right? And I think every church needs to also think that way. Okay, so what's the next like people group that God wants us to go to, right? It can't merely be Hyde Park, right? Like, and like people mentioned earlier, like, yeah, we've gone to IIT, but we can't stop there, right? And we need to keep looking outwards. So I think that's part of the reason why for me, and I think at every season we also need to just have something hard that we're trying to attempt. And so, yeah, I just appreciate that insight about it just being kind of hard. And yeah, I have to put in the work
for sure.
Yeah,
I appreciate the perspective too of like God's grander vision. Like you mentioned the Great Commission and how God calls all of his followers to go out and make disciples of all nations. And I think as I've been thinking about the effort that we're putting in, that's been helping to shape like the way I've been viewing it too. A few Sundays ago, when we introduced this idea to the students and let them know we're going to be trying the downtown services, DP had talked through how many college students there were in like the South Chicago like Loop area, including UIC. And I was a bit shocked to see that. Yeah, it's like over 500,000
in all of Chicagoland.
All Chicago, yeah, over 500,000. I was like, wow, that is so crazy. Because like obviously we're by U Chicago and IIT, and it's like smaller campuses, but I didn't really appreciate like the scope of that, like how many more college students there are in the city as a whole. And I was like, yeah, those are people who on some of those campuses, they don't have any gospel communities. And yeah, we're in a position where like we're not that far off from there. And so we have an opportunity to be able to go out there, meet new people and share the gospel with them. And I was kind of reminded of how like, yeah, like each of those people have like some unique background or story, but in some way, like all our stories are similar in that we're living life like according to like our own desires and ambitions, but God wants to have an encounter with us where we can recognize that, hey, like the God of the universe wants a relationship with us, and he can give us a mission and a life that's more joyful than anything we can find in this world. But there are a lot of people who like don't have that yet, and are trapped in a lot of like sin and struggle and meaningless pursuits. And yeah, we have a chance to be able to like intersect them on their journey. And for that to happen, like it's not going to just like fall into our laps. And so it's going to take like hard work and effort. And I guess for us, like that is like in the past couple of weeks, like it's been taking like time off or time out of our days and work days to go to campus, set up shop, and try to engage with new people, or a lot of our evenings too, going towards that. And yeah, it is effortful, and it's a lot of like it's hard to like getting like rejections from people as you're trying to invite them to the table or invite them to an event. But for the people that like came today, and for the people who like God willing we're going to meet in the future, it's so worth it because they get a chance to hear the gospel and a chance to respond to it as well. So I think in terms of like it being hard, it's like not like a meaningless struggle. I guess it's it's a very purposeful one. And I think, getting the perspective of who God has in store for us to reach has helped to like shape how I've been viewing it. So I've been thankful for that.
The thought that came to mind as you were talking is, I think from our current students' perspective, as we move our attention towards downtown, it means that in some ways it means that there's less attention towards the U Chicago ministry and the IIT ministry. I don't think we view it that way, but like technically, because I guess we used to have like 18 staff that were dedicated to these two campuses, but now we're spreading that out, or spreading our hours out, right? And just, we have a finite number of hours per week that we can spend on a campus or meet with a student or whatever. And so we're dedicating a bunch of that now towards these new campuses. So I get that sentiment. To some degree, that's true. It's not that we're not investing, like, because we have, for, you guys actually, Toph and Bia and then Genji, you're dedicated to U Chicago and IIT kind of as to make sure that, they have a staff to go to. You guys are the ones running Voyage crew and things like that. But yeah, it is the case that we're hoping and expecting actually for our students to take on more, right? And I think the analogy that I would hope that our students understand is that this is the kind of cost that every church paid to church plant, right? Like, it was painful. Like, I remember when we sent out like Lishan and Stella to Purdue, that was painful. We relied on Lishan and Stella for a lot of things actually, and just not in terms of just their ministry and the task and the skills that they had, and Lishan's awesome drum skills, but I mean, Toph, you're great too, but
Lishan's awesome though. Yeah, this is great.
But not just that, but just the relational strength that they bring, but we did that because we understood that in order to be serious about the Great Commission, at some point we all have to make sacrifices, right? Because how else are we going to keep planting churches unless we say bye to some people? Yeah. And that was the experience that all of us had when we were sent out, right? Like I'm sure LA Church would have loved to keep like Hyuna and Toph and right, but no, they're like out here, and so we get to benefit from that. But for them, experience as a loss, right? And that's the same for like Berkeley Church, who've sent out many people over the years. And so in a small way, like as we have these periods of time where we're kind of trying new things and trying to go to these new campuses, we have an experience of being able to surrender a little bit and to say, as painful and as much as this is not the ideal scenario that I would want for my maximal happiness, we still need to do this. Yeah. Because how else are we going to be obedient to the Great Commission? Yeah. So there's that thought. The other thought is that, it always feels like when we're sending people to a new place, it's like the crowds, right? And sometimes we joke like, Jesus saw the crowds and he had compassion on them, and that's a sign of his divinity, right? Because who can possibly look at a crowd and have compassion on them? Yeah. But you can actually if you know them. And that's the thing, like Jesus knows them. We don't. That's why we can't have compassion on the crowd. But like there was I met a couple of the newcomers that service today and just got to know a little bit about their stories. Suddenly I feel invested, like one of those guys from Columbia. I'm like, oh man, Columbia College, wow, there's this guy, right? And suddenly I know his story and suddenly I care about him, right? And I'm able to feel compassion for him. Right. And then I think about all the students in our ministry now. They were all strangers to us 2-3 years ago. Like who are these people to us? Should I name some names like Cheezer or like Tammy or, like all these like IIT students like Neil and Alex and just like, wow, like, okay, we didn't know them though, right? Like they were complete strangers to us. They had nothing to do with me except that they had everything to do with me. And now we're like part of the same church family, right? But how else would we have built those relationships unless we had gone out and someone had to pay a cost? Yeah. Right. And so this is all part of the dynamic of the Great Commission. And we have to be realistic about these things. Now, at the same time, we don't want to just accept that our relationships are going to get thin, right? So we obviously have to make great effort to still remain united as Voyage and all the staff. I think at the staff level we're really trying hard to do that, right? So that even when we're reaching out to all these campuses, we're still seeing each other a lot. And I think the Voyage crew people, hanging out with us on Friday night, hopefully you're experiencing a little bit of that, just as we have some time to fellowship and things like that. But yeah, I mean, we do have to be mindful of our closeness, but some costs do have to be paid. There's no way around it in order to fulfill the Great Commission. So.
Yeah, for sure. In a way, it makes the church more resilient as well as people continue to push themselves to advance God's kingdom, but also pay those personal costs. Because I think like for example, like when we send people off from churches either in Los Angeles when I was back there or from Evanston, part of it was like we had bigger shoes to fill. Like people had to do more to kind of fill off from where those people left off, and it was sad to see them go. But I also experienced like myself personally growing as I tried to do something new I didn't do before. My peers or like everyone in our ministry taking some effort to fill in for whoever it was that left, and I think it made us appreciate them more, obviously. But I think we also grew as a result of it, and I think that's a really cool way in which to like as we're paying these costs, like when we look at it in hindsight, we can see, oh yeah, that was hard, but God used that, like God redeemed that, and when I trusted Him, I was able to grow through it. Yeah.
I think like one thing that might be interesting to hear from you guys about is like, so what's been personally hard for you as we've been engaging in kind of outreach mode? So, I don't know if students know this, but like in the fall, we're in like outreach mode. And then in winter, we're sort of in like just stay close and stay Christian, get trained up, right? It's kind of cold. It's like hard to meet people. Let's use that time to get equipped and kind of get close. And then when the spring, it kind of follows the weather. As spring hits, we sort of get into outreach mode again, right? And so, but then this outreach mode, I think, has been more intense than previous years because of, this new push we're doing. So what's been personally hard for you? I think one thing that comes to mind for me is getting outreach into my schedule outside of just all the things that I have to do already. And I'm just reminded that it's a constant battle. Like I think every person is called to ministry. Every person has to engage in some level of evangelism and outreach and being out there so that you can meet new people. And I find that it's hard to make time for it because I just have so many other things I'm supposed to do. But this struggle is not a new struggle. Like this struggle is a struggle that I had in college. Right? Oh man, I know I'm supposed to outreach. Oh, I know I should like love my friend. Oh, that friend I'm trying to reach out to. Right? And then I'm always trying to like find like some very convenient time for that to happen. Oh, guess what? That's not going to come.
Yeah.
Like the only way it's going to happen is like, I'm going to do this. I need to make a commitment, or like with a friend, like, hey, let's do this. Right? Or you're doing it as a church. Like, hey, we're all going to go out and flyer together. So I think that's been the strengthening thing about like doing this together the past couple of weeks, which is that we're all saying, hey, like on Fridays, the way we've been doing outreach is everyone commits to an hour that they can somehow fit in, like a lunch hour or something, and then everyone takes an hour shift, and then we're able to go from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. So, but anyways, like just kind of making time for outreach has been just a realistic but struggle for me in the past couple of weeks. How about you guys?
I think I would ditto on that, like making time and like trying to be intentional about doing outreach, because I feel like I personally, it's just like juggling like Chicago like existing ministry, and on top of that like wanting to be one in heart with everybody that's going out to do downtown and like trying this new thing. I feel like a lot of times I feel like I have to like Tetris a lot of like my schedule and the things that I need to do for the day. So I think that's been a challenge, but I think it's helping me grow personally a lot more, because I'm usually not very efficient with my time. And I feel like if there wasn't anything that was like pushing me, I wouldn't grow in that area. So I think besides just like, doing outreach and getting to meet more people and like getting more ministry experience, I think personally for like my growth, it's been really good. So yeah.
To add to that, I think like thinking about this past week's DT, or this past like 2 weeks DT, and we see Moses, and he's a shepherd for 40 years, and then God calls him out, like, and he turns aside to see the burning bush, and then God calls him to be a deliverer of the Israelites, and Moses is like who am I? Like what? Like how, really? Like God, you want to use me? And I think that's kind of been my experience a little bit, but mainly from the perspective of like just taking on different things and scheduling and trying to Tetris everything in, like Hyuna was talking about, like I don't know. I think my personality is kind of like, I just want to be a good shepherd. I just want to be like, I'll just do my shepherding thing, and I'll just do it well, and I'll just focus on that, and maybe God will be happy with me. But God has a greater vision for me, which is to be a blessing to people. And now there's like different roles and shoes that Hyuna and I are like filling in, and I'm just feeling like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna die. There's too many things to think about. But no, like this is the way in which God wants to use me and shape me into, well, like not just use me and get, you know, as much productivity out of me as possible, but this is the way in which he's going to shape me into a blessing, into the type of person that he wants to shape me to be, to love people and to deliver people out of their sin and out of their the things that are imprisoning them.
Yeah, you're right on. I think personally, like what's been most challenging is like feeling like I don't have that much to give, and like kind of wondering like, oh, like is the little I have to give going to be enough, or like do I even have enough to give, like particularly with the area of like time, but also like my own I guess like emotional comfort. Like I come back from work, and usually like my most like free or like prime times during the week are like those few hours out like right after work. And so I'm like coming in and trying to jump right into like tabling or outreach at like U Chicago or IIT, and sometimes I kind of feel like, oh man, like I don't know if I have like the capacity to like engage with people or like invite people to our table or take like the imminent like no's and rejections that are going to come. And one part of like the devos this week that stood out to me was like when Moses expresses his insecurities and apprehension towards God, and then God is like, what's that in your hand? It seems kind of out of left field. It's like, oh, wait, what? It's like my staff. He's like, throw it on the ground. And it becomes
why?
Why would I do that? Then he does, and like this crazy thing happens. It becomes a snake, and like that's the sign he's going to use to win his people over, so that they can actually like face Pharaoh and like ask to be released from Egypt. And I was kind of reminded through that of how God is able to use like seemingly minimal everyday things to fulfill like his redemptive purposes. So in my mind, I see it as like, oh, I only have like these 2 hours or whatever, but in a way, like, yeah, God can still use like the little time that I am out there for, either to like, yeah, intersect with someone who can have a chance to have an encounter with Jesus, or even from my own heart to grow with burden, like for the people who are trying to reach. So one thing I've been trying to do is like right before I go out is like just like praying for God to give me enough to like push through it, and to like just give my all for however much time that I'm there. And that's been encouraging too. Like I usually come away from it feeling like refreshed, like thankful for the experience, thankful to have people I'm doing it with as well, that I'm not going through by myself. So yeah, it's been encouraging for me. Just learning to depend on God and see that he's able to use like the seemingly like minimal things that I have, and he's pleased by those sacrifices. Yeah,
when you were sharing it, like it strikes me as odd that when we feel like, oh man, but I only have like a couple hours to give, and what's that gonna do, and I should just not give it, right? Like that's such a relatable emotional thought process, but it actually makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you only have a couple hours to give, well, that's obviously what you should give, right? Like that's more clear. It's like less things you have to choose. Well, because God says to do it, and you're like, well, okay, yeah, so then you should just do it.
Yeah.
But then, so I think the thought process behind that is, what could I possibly accomplish?
Yeah.
Right? Like what? And it's this sense that I will only do something if something nets out at the end of it. And sometimes we just play the movie in our head, and we tell God it's not going to work, and so I'm not going to do it. Which is what Moses is doing, right? He's like, no, the Israelites are not going to listen to me.
Yeah.
Right? And God's just like, can you just go and do what I'm telling you to do? Right? He gets angry at Moses at some point, right?
Yeah.
And then God's really accommodating though, and he's very understanding. He even brings Aaron, and like Aaron's gonna help him speak or whatever. So but yeah, I just thought that was interesting. And yeah. And so like Toph, as you're talking, it also reminded me, because those couple of hours where you have that free time, I remember you were using it like for working out, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so then I remember recently you had this, like, you were like, oh, okay, I think I need to use that time for ministry, or like, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Epiphany. Yeah. So I think so. Yeah. So
calling you out on the public waves.
It's fine.
Airwaves.
Yeah. Honesty hour. Yeah. So basically, like, yeah, like you guys mostly already know, a lot of the staff like have day jobs too, and so like the time that we have to do ministry is outside of those working hours. And so yeah, the best of the hours that I have then is like the free time I have outside of work, like especially after work during the weekdays. And what I was finding like this past quarter was like coming into it, I had like a few like one-on-ones going from like the fall, but those kind of fizzled out. And then I kind of just felt like, I really want to like work out. I really want to work out more. I want to hit like the 1,000 pound club or whatever. And so I'm just
trying to compete with me.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. So I basically ended up using like a lot of my, like maybe like 2 out of my free work nights to get us exercise. Part of it was like, I want to try to meet more people at the gym, but that ended up being like kind of hard. I guess personally, it's a little bit hard for me to use that as an avenue to engage new people. So it ended up just being that I was just working out like on, like a couple times a week.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah,
right? I mean, working out is good, but I guess it sort of started to come up against like this need to,
like, what we're doing now.
Yeah.
So I think as we're making the push that we have now, and I was realizing like, hey, like, this isn't a bad thing. Like I still want to work out. But there were definitely like competing priorities, I guess. And this like took more precedence because like one, it's obviously a new thing that we're doing, but maybe this is the next step for me too in my own personal discipleship to say, hey God, this is something I'm gonna like surrender so that I can use this like time that's more like precious and available to me to pour into helping to make this thing happen. I kind of feel like that was like a way like God was calling me to obedience here, where it's like, hey, working out's not bad, but like you should be engaged and be a part of what I'm doing here, like in this city and in this church. And so like for me, like surrendering that was like how I tried to like contribute. One personal cost I guess I paid for it. And
I think I really love that example because it's something so menial and so everyday and so neutral as working out, and like, but that's what surrender looks like. That's what like, okay, like I'm serious. I keep saying I'm serious about like following Jesus seriously and outreach and evangelism seriously and ministry seriously, and I want to be a blessing. Oh, but I seem to have no time to do it because my time's completely filled with all the stuff that I normally do, right? And so many of those things feel like non-negotiables to us, right? So for people who are serious about working out, like that can feel like a non-negotiable. I mean, like I know that when you're sort of on a rhythm with the workout, you miss one workout and it kind of throws you off. Actually, it throws off like so then there's a part of you that feels like, well, I need that. And maybe you do, but does it have to be at that hour, right? Like, and so kind of learning to prioritize, right? Prioritizing, meaning you have to say no to certain things. You have to say, okay, so if the best time to do outreach is also right after work, before dinner or around that time, and the best time to work out is also at that time, what will win out in the end, right? And making those kinds of hard calls, right? So we recently had a message about being shrewd with our time, right? I think it sort of just falls under that banner. So
for sure.
Yeah, and another thing I was thinking about in terms of like something that's hard. I think this is just a universal experience that probably our students and our staff all experience constantly, right? And you guys can speak to this too, but it's this idea that of like just. Like, it's just hard to bring up spiritual subjects with people. Yeah. Right? So I experienced this even when, like, we're out on campus at UIC. And there's, like, during the passing hours, man, there's, like, hundreds of students just passing by within, like, 10 minutes, right? And like, a good number of those students, they, like, look over at our table. And, I can see them reading it. It's, like, Voyage, college, church. And then suddenly they, like, look away. And you're like, it's all right. I mean, like, right? And so there's this sort of, I don't know, like, I guess Satan has sort of made the world system into such a place where the idea of church, Jesus, like Christ, like these words are like almost taboo now. Like Christianity is like, some of the things that Christians believe are now being labeled as hate speech. And like, this is kind of common in our world. And so there's a sense in which Christians can be very afraid to bring things up because it feels awkward. And I think that's anytime we're out there in the public sphere, anytime we're putting ourselves out there, even if we're talking to a friend, and we're the one that's going to be like, hey, so like, do you have any experience with church? Like, do you have any experience with Christianity? Like, oh man, like that's going to feel awkward, right? But I just had the realization once again that there's no way around that. Like if you're going to be obedient, if you're going to follow Jesus and you want to suffer for him, that's one of the sufferings we have to engage in, which is, as Bo Cressetto put it, like you have to pay the awkward bill, right? Between you and the non-Christian friend, who's going to bring up who's going to bring up Jesus? You have to bring up Jesus. There's only one person there who has the ability to pay that awkward bill, right? It has to be you. And so I was just kind of reminded of that again as we were out there, and like that person's passing by this table. Are they gonna be like, oh hey, what's this about? Or am I gonna say, hey, do you want an Amazon gift card? Like someone, like we have to do it, right? And then every time you do it, like as awkward as that feels, I think what we're doing is like we're taking like this dark shroud that Satan has put over our world, and we're like shooting bullets through it. It's awesome. I don't know if that's the right imagery, but we're just like we're tearing it apart, right? By choosing to speak, because it almost feels like there's something on my lips that prevents me from saying certain Christian words out in the public sphere. We have to fight against that. Right? We cannot allow Satan to silence our speech, right? And so, anyways, I can probably keep going on that, but I'm just going to stop right there. All right, so another reflection from our time.
One thing to add to that, like I think so, like in the tabling is one example of like paying that awkward bill, but a lot of times that happens in daily conversations too. So you're talking with your friend, and maybe they just drop the word church, or like they used to go to church or something. And right in that moment, like you kind of know, like you could say something. Like, you could say like,
"There's an opening.
There's an opening. There's an opening. There's a crack," and you could open the door, and you could go there, or you could not go there, right? But then it's like back to the way I think about it is like that whole awkward bill thing, right? Like it's like, who's gonna pay the awkward bill? Like it's got to be me. I'm the Christian. Like I'm gonna pay it. Like. And I think when I think of it in terms of like a bill, I think that makes me like, I don't know, I guess it appeals to my like man pride or something. Like, really, am I really not going to pay this bill? Like, when I think of it in terms of fear, it's like it gets kind of overblown, and I'm like, oh, they might hate me or whatever. But when I think of it in terms of a bill, like, okay, there's a bill. Am I going to pay the bill? Yes, I'm going to pay the bill. So then I'll do it, and I'll go and I'll ask that question, right? So, I know a lot of people have. Mentioned like the awkwardness or the fear of what it's like to bring up, taboo subjects, quote unquote taboo subjects like church in daily conversations with their friends. But I think the awkward bill for me has been really helpful. Yeah,
I think personally, I am generally very thin-skinned person, and I can really resonate with like a lot of people, like even at Voyage Crew, when we're talking about like our commitments and wanting to talk with our friends, or like wanting to engage our friends in spiritual conversation. I think what DP was mentioning came up a lot, like, oh, I was trying to like sneak in a spiritual conversation, but the moment passed, or like I just felt like it wasn't the right time, so I didn't do it. Like I feel like that's something that's really relatable, like for me personally, and something that helps me because I'm like, I just have a very like contrarian, like challenging personality, to think of like my desire, or like our culture's desire for comfort and for like not awkwardness, and seeing that as like what Satan is orchestrating to make spiritual conversations uncomfortable. I think that helps me, because I'm like, what the heck? Why is he doing that? Like, I'm going to fight him. Like, heck no. I'm not giving into this, and I don't want Satan to win. And therefore, like, I'm going to stare my friend in the eye and ask her if she has thought about God. Or like, I think I have that like fighting mentality sometimes, and that helps me kind of get over that fear. And I think like because, just like my, like this general, like avoiding awkwardness and thin-skinnedness, because this is something that I have like made known. I feel like people have been helping me not be thin-skinned and like lean into awkward situations. And I feel like this is a muscle that we can like develop too, like something that I'm trying to develop as well. Like I remember like even DP and Kata like knowing this and like trying to help me. And we were at Chipotle one time and like the chips were stale. And then I remember, I don't know if you remember this TV, and you said like, oh, the chips are stale. And then I think Kata was like, oh, Hyuna, can you ask for like new chips? Because these chips are stale. And in my mind, I was like, oh, that's so awkward. Like it feels so like uncomfortable to have to go to like, I guess a customer service person who's supposed to be like giving like good service and be like, I'm so sorry, I don't want these chips because they're stale. Can you give me new ones? Like even that felt really uncomfortable. But I'm very thankful because like even those little things, like it's dumb. It's not like, it's like how is like asking for chips gonna help me like in ministry? But like actually it kind of does, because like as I've like learned to kind of, you know, be a little bit more shameless, without being, you know, offensive or like mean or anything like that. Like I think that has helped me in ministry. Like, oh, I've survived that. And like the neat thing is that like the more I lean into like awkwardness, I realize like, oh, I didn't die. And actually like because of that awkward conversation, because of like the golden question that I've asked people, like, oh, is there anything stopping you from like accepting Christ? Or like, is there anything stopping you from becoming Christian? Like there are moments where people's eternities have changed because of that question. Yeah. So I think that's something that I try to hold on to whenever I face those moments. Like beyond the awkwardness, there is like significant movement that people can make that has eternal consequences. So when I think about that, that really helps me.
Yeah. I think that when like awkwardness, discomfort, like friction in relationships. I mean, these things are not necessarily good. Like you could have awkwardness for awkwardness sake, which I also love. I actually think that's I think that's really funny. So it's my favorite type of humor actually. But I was about to go down funnel theory. I knew it. Dang. Okay. But I guess I did by just bringing that up. Anyways, we'll leave that in there just for the amusement of people who love to call me on that. But so you know, so awkwardness, discomfort, like these things are not necessarily good. But when there's spiritual things involved, so here's a perspective. I think that when there's discomfort, challenge, even sort of disagreement with someone about something, you can think of that as the spiritual battle being waged in that moment. Yeah. Right. And so like when you ask someone, hey, is there anything keeping you from becoming a Christian right now? Yeah. Wow. The power of that question, because it causes that person to have to respond. And so then the mental gymnastics and the thought processes and the feelings that are happening in that person is part of the spiritual battle. There's Holy Spirit working there, and then there's Satan working there, right? Yeah. And what you just did is you just gave the Holy Spirit an opportunity to work. Yeah. That person might not say yes, right? That person might say, no, I'm not ready to do that right now. That's beside the point, right? So, and it doesn't have to be that question. Even if you say, hey, what is your spiritual background actually? Oh man, you asked that question. Suddenly they have to think about that. Maybe they haven't thought about it in a while. So it made me think about, Ephesians 6, where it says, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. And we're engaged in this kind of spiritual battle, and that's what that on a day-to-day looks like. It's when you are talking, like I love that moment in preaching, because I guess I get to preach every week and I have the privilege of doing that, and I know that I'm building towards some sort of argument, and I'm gonna ask some sort of question that I need people to consider, and I know it's a challenging question, I know it's an uncomfortable question, but I still need to ask that question, right? Like today, like we're talking about heaven and hell, right? And I have to ask the question, okay, so hey, do you have a plan for your eternity? Like, okay, judgment's coming, do you have a plan for that, right? And I hope that people take that question seriously and actually think about it, right? And if you don't have an answer, that's not good. You're headed to a bad place, right? And everyone needs to be given a chance to consider that, right? So, so we have to, we have to be people who are very comfortable with discomfort. We can't shy away from that. Otherwise, I think then Satan will have won, right? Satan will have compromised us so much that we'll stay within what Satan has determined is comfortable in our world,
Yeah.
Right. Which will basically just mean, we're not going to talk about anything important. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really thankful for just a lot of ample opportunities for both us and for our students to engage in, hard things, like awkward conversations, or, going out to table and having, making that sort of awkward move of saying like, hey, come to our table and talk to us. Maybe you've never been to a church before, but like, come and talk to us. Like, we have something really precious, important for you to hear about. And man, I think one of the prompts that DP gave us like early on, while we were brainstorming for this, and I think a lot of the students who went to the retreat, I think they heard this too, but just imagining this vision of a Chicagoland church, a church where like, college students from all over, like, from 7 or 8 different campuses coming together on a Sunday, and it feels like family, and everyone knows each other. Everyone knows each other's, or like everyone knows what's going on in each other's lives, and we're, like new people who are part of the family, who are precious to us. Like imagining what, like that sort of a picture of a church, which our concern is way bigger than maybe it is right now. And yeah, really looking forward to the other side of the work and the effort that we're putting in now. I'm really looking forward to see that happen, hopefully.
Yeah. And, like, I'm just reminded as we have this discussion, I didn't think this is where we were going to end up, but just that everything we do it's because of the spiritual battle that's going on. Like this ultimate battle between God and Satan who, has no ability to create himself, but he perverts all that's good, right? And ultimately God's going to win, and he invites us to be in that battle. And so everything that we do, everything from, Neil and Matthew dancing in a shark costume, right? Like, I mean, like we're not just tabling for tabling's sake because we just think our group's awesome. No, it's like, it's also that we can get to moments like the golden question where we ask people, hey, what's keeping you, right? Like, do you want to do this right now, right? And we allow them to have that moment of spiritual struggle as the Holy Spirit and the forces of evil are battling within that person's heart. That's what this is all about. And for me, I Kata and I, we often talk about like we're so thankful for the lives that we get to live. Like, it's not the kind of life that I thought I'd be living when I was a college student, but wow, like we wouldn't trade it. Like, we wouldn't trade it. There's more comfortable ways that we could live, I guess, but like, is there a more meaningful way that we could live? I don't think so. So yeah, really thankful.
I think when we're talking about like the beginning of Chicago church and how like, starting everything, like starting something new is hard. And yet like, I don't know. When you're talking about that, I just remembered those days like in Chicago where I was like, oh my, like what? Like, where are the people at church? And like, it feels like we're just like doing correspondence here and there. And it never felt like, I just never imagined that we would be where we are today with like our students and people being so eager to like do evangelism, who are on board and who are sold out on the mission like with us. That's just so amazing to me that we're here now. And I feel very privileged because like now we're in a moment where, we have those students that we minister to wanted to minister alongside with us, and just imagining the fruit that will come out of that, where we'll, meet more people who will be able to, faithful men who will be able to teach others also. I think that is just so exciting. And I feel like because I and like some of our other staff have had the taste of that, like of ministering to students and like people being like sold out on the mission and like continuing to multiply that, having that perspective, I'm just really excited for what's to come with our downtown outreach and UIC outreach. And I'm so thankful and excited that like, even Voyage students like get to experience that too. I think it's so precious. And I feel like that will really like inform how you view God's vision, like in the future, like for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. We're approaching our sixth year anniversary here. And I think when we get to our 10-year mark, maybe we'll look back at this time. Maybe at our 10-year mark, we'll look back at the first set of graduates from the Loop or something like that, right?
Wow.
And we'll be like, we had no idea what we were doing, but we're glad we did that. Yeah, and that's what we're working toward, right? It's going to take multiple years, but it's something that God's shown us before. Why not try it again, right?
Yeah.
So,
Amen.
All right, cool. Let's end on that. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for another episode of D-Pod. We're hoping that we can produce these more regularly. Right, Toph?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get on it. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.